Hello, everyone. Welcome to the continuing webinar series that we're going to have today on methods of building XR experiences. We've covered this in two previous series, and I'm showing the slide from the last time we covered this where we had a showcase between KR Pano and Pano 2 VR. Today, we're going to cover 3D Vista, and I'm going to go ahead and upload this PDF, and it has a lot of, if I back up a page or two here on, you'll see that it has a lot of information on what constitutes, XR or VR building software. But first, let me also say that as IVRPA, we're the largest international organization focused on XR content creation. So we focus on the creators. We cover a lot of different areas, 360 video, VR. Today we're doing the builders. This will be a recorded session. It will be available for playback for members. Membership for IVRPA is a low $50 a year, and it gets you access to all of the webinars that we do on a monthly basis, and also an increasing set of resources. We're going through a website update. We'll have it out at some point, and we have a lot of nice resources in there. Today, we're going to cover 3D Vista. We're not going to go into the software as far as how to use it. There's a lot of online tutorials, and I think, everybody uses ChatGPT or things like that. Let me get back to the slide here.
If I could just mention real quickly, if you are putting a message in chat, be sure that you click above where you write that it goes to everyone if you want everyone to see it. Otherwise, only panelists will see it. That's the only quick note I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you. Forgot about that. I'm sending out in the chat this PDF of the past webinar, and I just wanted to really quickly before I turn it over to the other board members of where 3D Vista sat in this, all of the tools that are available, and it was broken down into what would be considered authored or kind of your turnkey if you're new to XR or you're just entering it and you don't want to be, heavy into the coding and things. You can see that circle or pie down to the lower left is where you would want to start. 3D Vista and some of the other software, it has extensibility with its ability to run JavaScript programming. So you'll see it's a great package to start out with and then grow into and then become advanced. And you'll see in some of the software, some of the examples that the board members are going to show you today, they're doing advanced work on that. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn it over to the three board members. And they'll go through. First up is going to be Lawrence, and he's going to kind of show you some of the software and stuff. So, all right. Now, it might be a little bit of a hiccup as we, kind of transition between people, but I think, Lawrence, you should be ready to go now.
Great. Thank you very much, Lauren. Nice intro. And today I'm beginning because I'm a 3D Vista user. I started in 2016, and the reason I chose the program is that when I reviewed the different features, it was much like Lauren said. It's got the graphical user interface. It is very approachable for the new user. Also for the experienced user, one of the things I like about it is you can go in and you can quickly design something and you can quickly have output that looks professional. And in fact, kind of the way I would characterize that is that 3D Vista really allows you to jumpstart a tour. So let me just switch over now and well, okay, so I need screen sharing. And I don't have this, I don't see the button.
Maybe make bigger the screen of Zoom so you can see the share button is green.
Yes, it should be here. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. There it is, hiding. Okay, so this is a tour that, as you can see, I completed in 2022. This was a commercial real estate project. So there were some characteristics to this tour that were a little different than some of the residential projects I had done, for example, or projects that I might do for an artist. And after passing through this initial loading page, you can clearly see that we've got a commercial property, and the tour begins with a soundtrack if you have audio turned on. But I'm going to take us right to the interior, right where the heart of the tour begins. And I want to start by pointing out along the top where I have these tabs with words. One of the things that's very commonplace that I've observed in the 360 tours is that you see a lot of thumbnails, which are small representations of the panoramas people can see, and then you click those to get to that location. In this instance, the client's need is better served not by having small pictures that are a little hard to understand and are fairly nondescript, but by having tabs that are specifically labeled with the destination. And if I'd had to program this from scratch, it really would have been quite a challenge for me. I would have had to figure out a whole new button system and all of the alignment and the formatting that goes into it. And it really would not have been an efficient process for me. But as you can see, if you're the owner of this building, you appreciate that if you want to go to the lobby, you can point to it and click lobby. You don't have to hunt through a bunch of small pictures to see which one is going to be the lobby. The other thing is that industries have specific language for things. So I'm going to click on this button called Podium, and what you'll see is the exterior courtyard between two buildings that are on the property. And again, this is an example where a thumbnail wouldn't have been informative. It would have just shown a small view of the outside. But in real estate, for commercial real estate, podium means something very specific to these people. So having that button say podium is much more useful and much more direct to their purposes. So having pointed all of these things out, I want to now show you a little bit of the behind the scenes. So I'm going to go down here, take a moment. And what I've done is I have loaded a blank tour template. This particular one comes with 3DVista. It's called Enterprise. When I was looking through the provided templates that are available, I noticed that this one had buttons along the top that had words that have
Lawrence,
nothing
we
to do
still
with
see, so sorry, we still see Elevate Harbor. We're not seeing your 3D Vista.
Okay. Hold on, thank you. Let me redo that. Better?
Yep, there it is.
Thank you so much. Okay, so to repeat briefly, this is inside 3D Vista. What I've done is I've loaded the template that was used for the project I was sharing, but you can see along the top, these are just miscellaneous words that were put in, sort of like Greeking, and they really don't apply. But what I now can show you is just how direct it is to make changes to a template in 3D Vista so that you can look like you've worked a long time on the interface. And what you've really done is a great job of replacing variables. So for example, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on reception, which is the first button that I want to activate. 3D Vista has this great GUI interface that when you do something on the screen, you get something that amounts to feedback on the right-hand side. This is actually on the right-hand side, the list of all the parameters that are creating the screen that you're seeing. So in 3D Vista, you're making parameter changes. You're not writing code. The code gets written in the background. You never see it. So for example, I've clicked on reception. It highlights that, okay, this is a drop-down menu option. But what's really interesting is that when I go down a little further, I see that there's actions that can be applied to it. So let's just add a quick action. I want to open a panorama. We'll open the first one here on the list. that happens to be the entrance. So a further change I'll make is I'll go into the default text and I'll write entrance. And when we look back on the interface, it says entrance. And if I make a preview of this or I finalize it, when I click on that button, it will open the panorama that I've selected under the actions. So this sort of quick iteration and going back and forth between the parameter and what I'm seeing is really the power behind 3D Vista's approach. And it actually influences my workflow because very often I like to design in the software that's creating the output. So if I'm writing code, I have to do all of the design work ahead of time. And then I'm going to have to follow up with all of the code and the specifics. What 3D Vista has allowed me to do on a number of projects is design in real time and create the look I want that I may not have expected in the first place. So in the current example, I have selected a template that was close to what I had in mind. And then all I had to do was go in and tweak the parameters to get the final look that I found acceptable. This was helpful to me as a designer, and it was also efficient for the customer because they got something that was a very direct creation rather than a long iterative process where we make, whiteboards and then show them and then get code written and then change our minds. So this is where I reached the point. I think it would be helpful to show that as well as now I've just changed screens. Do I need to do the screen sharing trick again, Stephanie?
Yes, you need to click share and then switch to your current app that you want people to see.
Got it. Okay, let's try this. All right. Okay, I have to say I'm a little bit flummoxed. I'm trying to get to my desktop and I'm not quite getting there.
I believe you were showing your desktop a moment ago.
Okay, let me try one more time.
And when you share, it'll be shown what you're sharing. In that share dialog will be shown in green.
Okay. All right, so now this example that I've shown you, I gave the rationale for using the graphical user interface, making buttons that had words instead of pictures. An interesting aside that I'm going to point out, this property that we're looking at no longer exists. This was an office building that got a refresh. The pandemic hit and suddenly nobody wanted offices. So a couple years ago, all of this was leveled down to the bare earth and a new industrial logistics building was built in its stead. And I actually was brought in to photograph that. And this is the building that now sits in the spot where we were just looking at. Obviously, it's quite different. But the other thing that's different is this shows an example of how many tours are laid out, and I thought would be appropriate in this case, where in fact, we've got thumbnails that the user selects, and these thumbnails lead you to the panorama for that area. Now, this also makes sense for the simple reason that as a brand new building that's a warehouse, they don't have specific labeled areas. It's more generalized. So in a more generalized setting, if there isn't something specific, we can revert to a more visual presentation, which is what I worked on, so that, well, the warehouse doesn't have a number or a name, but it is a large space that's easily understood visually. And I think even the thumbnails are visually sufficient to get people to the different locations so they can see what there is to be seen. So this building, by the way, still exists. So we've got these ways of working that are complementary to a visual approach versus a coding approach. And then we have the opportunity to use templates. 3DVista has templates on their website, and they also have a marketplace where it's possible to get these skins. And again, once you acquire these skins, you go in, you modify them to your particular project. By the way, you can save those modifications so you can use the skin at a later date. And then you've got this collection of templates that are really going to help you look good right from the get-go. And that's what you want, even if you're just beginning. And 3DVista appeals to beginners, but you don't want to look like you're just getting started. You don't want to look like an amateur. So 3DVista allows you to come in and look like you've done a professional job right from the very beginning. And the final comment I want to make is don't forget about responsive, which means the reformatting of your tour for mobile devices, because 3DVista has worked really hard to provide that capability. And although I'm not showing it here because we're probably all on computers at the moment, I am emphasizing it because I have a whole responsive version of these tours that look really good, built in the same way that I can go to the parameters, I can change them, I can work visually, but then I have something that's beautifully formatted for a mobile device, which is particularly challenging to put something like this on a phone. So that brings me to the conclusion of my thoughts and notes about this. And it's my understanding at the end, we'll have an opportunity for questions.
All right, thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.
Next up is going to be Daniel is going to go ahead and cover. He's
Thank you.
another one of our board members, and he's going to show off some of the work that he's been doing. So Lawrence and I will stop our videos again.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Hey, can you see me? Sorry.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you. So, it's a great pleasure for me to be here in front of you guys. I want to share you the work that I did in Norway, thanks to Senio that did the contract. And a short notice of me, I am Daniel Rojas from Colombia, South America. I work in my company, 3Go Video. We create all these cool experiences, and this is one that I want to really show you. So what we did in Norway was 360-degree photography, professional photography. It was really freezing. Thank God we were inside a hangar, so we could all take the correct pictures that we needed. But you can see, right? You can see the image from the outer side of this hangar. What camera did I use? I have a Sony Alpha 6400, Sigma 8mm. I used for this case another Ninja Mecha C1. You can see here down below. I use the Freedom 360 mini tripod that is great for lower work. In this case, I used. I had to go down on the belly bottom of the helicopter. It was a great job because we had to take, as I said, 40 360-degree photographies professionally inside the hangar. What they use this tour is for maintenance people. So having this virtual tour, it allowed them to understand better what they were going to be in front of. No, so this virtual tour, as I said, has 40 photographies. But what I have seen is that if a virtual tour has more than 10 photographies, you need a floor plan. And this floor plan was designed by the team that contracted me. And what I needed to do manually, because in 3DVista, they still don't have the actual position of the floor plan. So what I did was just in an action. When I clicked, for example, the cockpit or the cabin or the cargo, in actions without programming, only saying, okay, hide and update, hide, show and hide elements, like you can see here. Here is called hide and show hotspots because it's translated to Spanish, but I just added an image to the point, so the actual position can show that you're on that position. So I just changed from blue to green, and this allows to help people understand better where they are, because most of the virtual tours, you're clicking, but you are not noticing or understanding where you are at. So this is very, very helpful. Also, one interesting thing is that as I had 40 photographies, but each was not interconnected between, as you usually do. What I did is that each panorama has from inside a hide and show element. Later on, I will show you better to understand. This is really important because these actions of show and hide panoramas or elements within the panoramas can be copy pasted. So you can improve on efficiency because you don't have to do it for 40 for each of the 40 photos, but you can copy and paste these actions and then advance to another panorama and continue. If you need further explanation, I can show you also too. Also, for this, as you see, I did this 2 years ago in 2023, and I used for my first time the AI patch assistant for Photoshop. So what I did is I have still the Photoshop that the version that still understands 360, and it also has the AI capability. So I managed to keep both, although now the Photoshop doesn't allow this type of 360 imagery. But I kept this version to use AI and 360, and I was able to remove the reflections. That for me was an amazing result because you cannot notice it. So maybe normal clients don't notice, but what we as professional, we want to be really detailed of details, no? To really precise on details. So it was really good. Also, as you can see, you have the inside of the cockpit. The cockpit took a lot of time because it was a really stretched space, and there were not only buttons on front, but on the top and in the bottom. So this took a lot of work, but successfully I could achieve great results. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Do you want to see? This is the actual tour. So you arrived to the first photo. You can click the outer hotspots. And what I like most is the floor plan. It shows you where you actually are. So here, I can click and advance. No, wait, this. Here I can advance to the helicopter, and as you can see, I have two states. They wanted for inner or closer photographies have two states, closed and opened. So this, what I did, as I mentioned before, each panorama has to show each of these two elements that are thumbnails. So when we are back here, the show height elements activates these thumbnails. And this is quite easier than to have been doing the many combinations of hotspots between every hotspot. So it's a good pro tip that I give to you. So we have the inner like cabin photos. We have open, close. It's a nice transition. And that's it. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
There's a couple of questions, Daniel.
Oh.
So the floor plan screen, actually, this is a question from Daniel too. They're asking the floor plan screen in your presentation. Can you explain how you made not only the floor plan, but the elevation map?
The elevation map?
I don't know, Daniel, if you want to maybe be a little bit more specific on the elevation map. So the floor plan, Daniel, that you,
Yeah.
Daniel Roja, what you made was the floor plan function with your making a hotspot and adding
Yeah.
an action to the hotspot, which changes, right?
The panorama.
So I hope that that makes sense for Daniel. And then Stefan wanted you to repeat the process that you use for removing the reflections of the tripod. Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah. So I, as you see, in Photoshop, 2025 version 0.0, that was, I think, the last version of Photoshop that allowed to use 360 degrees imagery inside Photoshop. I don't know if you know that, but now Photoshop has updated and removed that possibility. So I tried like to maintain the version that accepts is that I don't know if I have here this version, but I had the version of Photoshop that accepted the 360. I think I have it. I'm going to show you. So you can have 360 imagery and the AI capability, and it worked really nice. And the awesome thing is that I didn't have to write, like now that you have to write a prompt to remove the reflection. I just said remove, and and most of the times it did a really great job. Now with all these more new models of image on machine learning and AI, it must be different. But wait, here I can show you about yes, one sec. So here you can see version 25.0. So if I open, for example, I don't know, let's see this. Wait, maybe I have another image so I can show you. So you can easily, so this is an equirectangular image, right? So in Photoshop, you go here and you have this option, panorama, spherical panorama. So you say new panorama of this layer selected, and it takes a lot of time, but I've been like my workflow has been like really improved with this type of functionality, although it's clumsy, because as you can see, I can move, but it takes really a lot of time. So with this, you can, for example, select a region, and here you can use AI generative fill, and you just say generate. And if it works, it will go to the cloud and make its magic, and it made it. Yeah, it gives some solutions that you can choose from. You can see, but the important thing is to here say merge down, because if, for example, if you move yourself, if you move, I wasn't prepared for this question, but
That's okay. This one comes up along. We should probably have a webinar at some point about doing the image editing again. I was going to. I'm just going to chime in here and say that you're right. The Photoshop dropped to 360 support. Affinity still has 360 port, but it doesn't have the AI, generative fill that's now so critical to painting out, or editing images. I like to recommend using, just take your panoramas before you edit them, convert them into the two formats. The single equirectangular image, right? That'll have a 2:1 aspect ratio. Use that one to do for image, processing across the whole image, sharpening, things like that, color correcting, and then convert it to the 6 cubic images, which will now have the straight lines, and you can go through and edit those just straight in. I use Photoshop Beta, the brand new version. And the other thing to note is that in the generative fill, if you haven't noticed, not all of the tools do the same generative fill quality. If you use the stamp generative fill tool, like if you're just sweeping out the tripod with the stamp, the J, I just use by the key, the keystrokes on it, but that one doesn't produce as nice of a result as if you use the lasso to actually select it. So make sure that you experiment in Photoshop with the generative fill and in the beta version, because they are rapidly updating those.
Yeah, I think I understand now. Thank you, Lauren, the intervention. That is really nice. I think I understand now what Daniel Brown wanted to say, is that what I had to do for the actual position is each time a user clicks, I have to update the position manually. There is no like elevation map, or I just updated the position manually with hide and show components from the 3DVista. Thank you, Lauren.
A number of people have been talking about how they have handled the retouching from equirectangulars. One was mentioned, Supercubic version 2, which I agree is a very good way to convert equirectangular to cubics and then back. But Panel to VR does that as well. You can just drop in your equirectangular and spheric and go to cubic, and then take the cubics and convert them back to spheric. You can do that directly in PT GUI, which is how I do it. So that's a way to do it using the cubic faces.
Yeah, that is another great way to use it. Any more questions, maybe? Or at the end, better?
No, I think let's just go ahead and shift off into the next one. Next is Stephanie,
Thank you.
our third board member, and she's going to continue showing the work that she's been doing. So, and thank you, Daniel. It was a very nice presentation.
Hey, my name's Stephanie Wilcox. I'm a professional 360 virtual tour creator. I'm based in Illinois. I didn't say that. And we have a small team. We do primarily commercial, historic, and government virtual tours. So lots of museums and the like. One of the features that I really wanted to highlight for you guys, and I've been using 3DVista all the way through. I chose it because of the customization without having to build everything from scratch, right? So there's some really neat elements that you can create and customize yourself without having to program everything, which I kind of feel like everybody's touching on. One of the things that we didn't really talk about too is that when 3DVista, when you first start for non-users, it's broken into tabs. You work independently in the skin, which is like your menu, user interface, everything that's on the screen at all times is a skin element. Then you can individually work through panoramas, or if you have 360 videos, in different tabs. And so building from panoramas, most items are considered hotspots. So when you have a clickable interaction between two locations, those are considered hotspots, and any clickable icon. And so one of the things that we've done to create a unique customization, there are lots of options for hotspots. There's a whole menu with actions. And so one of the things that we've done is to create an action for a hotspot that does a show hide component. And the show hide component features will allow you to show components that are in the skin. And so I'm able to then customize my windows to have features and elements that aren't typical. I just build the whole thing from scratch. And so, and the key here, I think for users that are familiar with building things in the skin, it's containers in containers with containers. So everything is going to keep its proper proportions, whether or not you're moving the screen or on a different sized monitor. And the reason I really love using the show hide components for our information windows is you can host any number of elements in here. And so this custom window has photos. We have some with 3D models. I'm gonna pop around. We'll go show one really quick with a 3D model that we have in them. We do, let's show this chair. And so by building this window, my information window is standard across the entire tour, but I'm able to host in a whole number of different elements in this window based on what I'd like. The other thing, having text, buttons, and then as well audio within all of this. And another key feature, one of the things that we really work towards is accessibility for virtual tours. The general global accessibility can be found on w3.org if you're not familiar. But persons with disabilities who maybe aren't able to use a mouse and a keyboard and the functionality that able-bodied person can. This is a desire to get these people to be able to experience spaces that they wouldn't otherwise be able to. And so some of those features, there is a huge list of metrics we'll have to do a separate webinar on, but some of those features are to have alternative methods of delivering your information. So where we have text, I also have audio. And then we're able to do the keyboard functionality through this custom window that we've built so that everything can be opened and closed with just the matter of the keyboard without having to use the mouse. And so that's a huge function for us to be able to go in, open up
The dining room,
the audio,
Booker T. Washington.
and close this window without the use of a mouse. And then I've also got in this specific tour a 3D model floor plan. Again, this is just a little unique in the sense that a general floor plan with 3DVista pops open and generates its own window. This shows you within the location of the house where you are, and will move to different views within our 3D model. And so this was a window that we made that displays a 3D model. It looks like a floor plan viewer. It's not a floor plan viewer. And then it changes each view as you move throughout the house, which we did in the panorama settings. So as you enter a new panorama and you enter a new section of the home, you're getting a new floor plan. So as you move to the second floor, now this is floor plan 2. And so those are kind of some of the more unique features. I'm gonna stop sharing, and I really would love to open up to have like questions. I think that our entire board would love to answer questions in 3DVista.
Yeah, let's go ahead and open up, turn the video back on. And just invite people to chime in. I think that 3D model that you were just showing is generating some interesting interest. I'll start off with that model. How did you make it? Is it like a SketchUp, or you took
Okay, so yeah, there's a few different. So the chair, we're using LiDAR scanners for our furniture. The floor plan, literally using an iPhone app. So there's a couple different ways that those can be achieved. Okay, someone's asking about how the 3D model is synced with the panorama hotspot. So I'm happy to share that. I don't have that specific project pulled up, but I can share where that would be in 3DVista real quick.
What's the format of the object that's being handled? And I guess there's some questions asking is that I think I caught you saying that's not a standard 3D
Right.
Vista feature. It's a plugin that you've created.
That we created, right? So
Okay.
you can add a floor plan here, with whatever for 3DVista. And it's like we talked about, right? This is a really wonderful, easy to start software. You add your floor plan. So you pull your PDF floor plan here, and it automatically generates that window in the skin for you. Let me see if I can find something that will open up a floor plan really fast.
Yeah, what she's showing here is the power of the extensibility to where, you're able to build. If you wanted to start with this package and you're new to it, you can learn, and
I
then
don't
you can get to the point where you start to produce custom features like you're seeing with this dollhouse or linked dollhouse. And I think especially with AI coming and its ability to code for you these small little snippets or little widgets, or in the KR panel world, they're called plugins, but most of the software has it. It's you can kind of see the power of it.
So sorry, I just do not have a floor plan right now, but so you can pull in floor plans, it will automatically generate a floor plan. But in the container, you're able to add an action. And this is what we kind of talked about. The hotspot actions or button actions or functions that you can add are really, this is where the customizations are open to you. And so what we're doing is it's a container that opens a 3D model. And what we did when we have the container opening the 3D model, we have that general house. And then the 3D model has different views. I didn't load that project. I feel really bad now because I should have. It's a complicated process. But that 3D model, we make a bunch of different views for that. So the view of this room, the view of this room. And then when you're on the panorama settings also have actions.
Okay.
So before you even go into hotspots or any of the other tabs, you can add here to open the 3D model at a specific view.
So when you jump into a new panorama, it is triggering an action that will set the orientation of that model in space to match the view. So it's
To
not
match the
necessarily linked,
Perfect.
you're just triggering, which is very common to all
Yep.
of the software, that you can trigger custom actions when the panorama loads, when a person clicks on it, when they, all these when they touch a hotspot. So when they're asking about syncing, not necessarily. What's happening is that each panorama, of course, will have its own unique model orientation.
Yes.
Each time you jump to a new panorama, you just move the dollhouse. But back to is that a J3 model, or just for, if we're looking at how did you integrate that model into 3D? What's the format, if you happen to know? Because typically
Hmm.
pulling a model into one of the software kind of overloads it, unless it's a really stripped down, like in the KR panel world, you can bring in what they call, is it J3 or JS? I'm getting
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
I'm gonna say, and this has been a minute since we did that, but I'm gonna say we did a 3D scanner app and just did the floor plan real quick, cleaned it up,
OBJ.
and then OBJ. Yeah, I think we
Oh,
just
just a
loaded the
standard
OBJ.
OBJ. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good to know then. So, for those of you that are getting interested in the Gaussian splats, I don't think we're to the point yet where you can do a space, but you can definitely create a pretty nice looking thumbnail model of a space using a Gaussian splat process, where you're going to export it out as a very low polygon count OBJ file. So that's really good to know. I had not thought of what you just did there. That's really clever. Because the floor plan is really, that's one of the features that makes Matterport, the dollhouse, is kind of really gives you that 3D feeling. I wanted to ask you, I'm not a 3D Vista user, but I wanted to ask you about the transitions between panoramas. Do you have the 3D type of transition where you're not just doing the fade or the abrupt jump, but you're actually able to move towards the hot spot that you're clicking on, and then as you're jumping into the other panorama, you're continuing that?
They
So you
simulate that
have,
expect.
Yeah,
you
this
have that
is
effect? Okay,
They
cool.
simulate that,
simulated.
yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. A question in here about stereoscopic. I'm assuming that 3D Vista supports stereoscopic imagery and building out
Yeah,
through VR. Okay.
it supports 360, 3D photo and video. You can do both.
Yeah, I had a little thing of features I remember off the top of my head I was going to put together, but then as I said, you can just go to the site and they've got a great features list of things. Ones that I thought were very impressive was adaptive HDR. So I'll do HDR because I'm in a room, pretty common, right? You're in a darker room and you got bright windows. So our standard process is you take bracketed shots, you flatten it all out, but that's not the way that it works in reality. because as you turn, your eyes are adjusting and the lighting. And so they have what they call adaptive HDR, where you'll take the HDR shots, load them up, and as you move to the darker, the lighting is changing to be more light. So you're looking at it's a really impressive way of retaining the detail. Because whenever you do HDR, you tend to flatten or muddy the image out if you're not careful. HDR is a very difficult process to not end up with, junk.
They also do a live panel where, it's on their homepage where it's like daytime, and then as you rotate around, it becomes nighttime.
Oh, good question. That was another feature that if there's anybody of our members, I think we have some that are doing construction or site analysis or remediation, geographic information, stuff like that. That's a really nice ability to do the before and after or comparisons. And so business application, because 3D Vista is really, really powerful, easy to make. You're doing a construction site, right? You're a construction firm and you could take panoramas every day, boom, 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 and then have in your software the ability to just run through, a time window between those panoramas and to show I've seen that. It's pretty impressive where you'll show the time lapse in a VR, in an immersive VR mode.
The other really cool thing that they show is that you can have an animated panorama. So basically, their example is you're in a shop, and then all of a sudden the shopkeeper starts talking and is interacting and then stops. The thing is, when they originally introduced it, it required the use of After Effects, which is a whole nother skill set, a whole nother cost. And then
I've got one. I'll try and find it.
I kept emailing them, because they said for a long time they were going to have their own tools internal to 3D Vista that would do that, and you wouldn't need After Effects. And that never came to fruition. But for those who already know After Effects and can go through that process without too much trouble, that looked like another feature with a lot of potential to add that sense of aliveness to the 360 panorama that's often missing, that I think we all strive to put back in somehow.
Yeah, KR Pano had done that with video avatars and things like that, and they had a really nice tea shop. One had done, and I had done a couple where the client, you were at a factory and the owner was in the lobby and recorded them, and then you would click and he would talk and stuff. But it was really difficult to get, at least when I was doing it, to integrate that video and not just overload the panorama. You had to just degrade the quality of the video so much. But you do have video integration in 3D Vista, right? You can bring in like an avatar type of a thing. And does it allow you to embed? Could you do that?
Yeah, so I'm sharing right now. So this is just a still panorama that we wanted to animate the trout
Okay.
in the hatchery. So it allows you to, do your section of the panorama.
Okay, cool.
So same like an avatar,
Could be-
like we were saying.
Okay.
You could
So it'd be the
add
same
a
thing as a person
or
standing there.
any number of things. Yeah, yeah.
The
Very
other
cool.
thing, the other thing they show that it'll do is you can have a 360-degree panorama movie, and that can be live and have hotspots. Now, I don't work in 360 video, so I don't know the specifics on how that's accomplished.
Yeah.
But they do have a demo on their website, and
Yeah,
it looks very impressive.
Yeah, when you are seeing the 360 video, you can add, like you said, Lawrence, like how do you say, like imagery that appears in I don't know, second number 10 or 20. And you can click and you can jump. It's really it works. It works.
Yeah.
I've got one. I'll get there.
I'm looking at obviously there's a lot of questions about the Gaussian splatting. Any of you want to talk about? I know 3D Vista is going to or is in the process, but like everything else, and KR Pano has released it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So I work on Mac, and I think that anybody who's working on Mac with 3D Vista knows that that's not really what they intended. They're Windows. And so that is the struggle right now. But they do have Gaussian splatting. It works wonderfully if you're on Windows. And I haven't professionally used it because of that. So
Is that primarily just because of what's really making, there's a question about here is about how is AI going to affect virtual tours? Well, that is Gaussian splatting. It's really neural radiance fields or AI training using imagery that you have collected. The Gaussian splatting, I don't know if that name will, I like the name holodust. I'm trying to come up with a new term, but Gaussian splatting is just the element that's currently being used, but there's triangles, there's voxels, there's all types of things. So that is, and you're right, it is the future. Our next webinar will be on that. And very nice work, by the way, Daniel. This is really, I'm spinning around here looking at it. It's cool. It's a very cool technology. It's in
Someone
AirPan.
else is asking about AR integration, which is interesting because that is something that we've done, and it isn't necessarily like native to, I don't know that AR is really native to any one of the, like, I
Well-
feel like you can integrate a Polycam model. Polycam has AR, right? But like none
Yeah.
of the virtual tour created or 3D model creating softwares really integrate AR into the,
Well, what they mostly use is to have a QR code so you can grab the 3D and use it like externally. But yeah, they don't have.
yeah. So we host our own models separately so that when you click a hotspot, it takes you to the AR URL so that that link can be put into the hotspot as an action. You can hotspot a URL and then it opens up the user's camera. They leave the virtual tour and their augmented reality then.
And I believe what the issue is with the Mac and PC, and it may not be, a long-term or permanent thing, is that the initial work being done on these is on PCs, and it's utilizing them. What makes it possible is the RTX graphics boards, 30 and 60 above. They have these built-in, I think they're called CUDA, but they're these ray tracing and other types of algorithms. They were initially designed for ray tracing, but they're on kind of onboard algorithms that make this AI training, especially the camera alignment, possible. I don't believe that Mac will sit back, and they've got very powerful processors in their machines as well. So I think it's just a matter of those graphic board libraries. I'm also curious, I don't know if you've also seen, they're having what they're calling AI boxes, where it's akin to the Alienware rendering engines that used to where it's a separate GPU and they're using Thunderbolt connections to them. So you're starting to see where you might, if you're thinking about buying a Mac versus PC, I wouldn't hold off. Don't think like you got to go get a PC, because I think we're kind of in just a temporary situation at the moment. And I'm using KRPano to produce Gaussian. I'll drop an example, even though I'm early in it. But it runs on a Mac. I do my development work on a Mac, and I have a Windows PC doing the training. And so it's just the training of the model right now that is the PC problem. Displaying a Gaussian splat is not a Mac. I mean, you can do it on a Mac.
Yeah.
Forgot. Yeah, a lot of questions about the Gaussian splat. This will be fun. Like I said, we're going to do the next webinar will be on it.
Oh yeah, somebody asked if we shoot with the DSLR or use a noddle head, taking videos and masking them to 360. So yes, all the things. We use all-in-one cameras. Those are definitely easier in video. So we're using like Ryko Insta for the all-in-one 360 video, and then DSLRs. And yeah, you just have to make sure your locations are identical and don't move. And I use a Mecha C2. I use a dual pano head.
I'm going to use a question for Daniel, kind of on the same subject, is that cockpit, when you're inside the helicopter,
Yes.
that's typically kind of a challenging shot to get.
Yeah.
Any you want to talk about kind of any tips or how you got a shot in a space like that, equipment, things like that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to show you my. Can you see it here?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So the thing is that as I had only 2 days to take all the pictures, I wanted to make sure that I had everything. No, so I have a Mecha C1, and what I noticed there is that obviously it will be better to have the C2 that has Stephanie, because you can point the camera down. In this case, you need to point the camera down because chromatic aberration, although you can remove it, the colors and the aberration, there is still some, you can see here some, how do you say, like not well defined image. So it is better if you shoot down and you rotate and then shoot up and then rotate to have a lot of information, no? So I did that, but at the end, the stitching, it didn't change so much. So I used the same 4 shots around, and I did hard work on zenith and not deer. That's how I made the buttons to look clearly, although I feel that maybe my Sigma 8mm, although it also has like a scratch on the, just in the center, that affects a lot light because it converts and is not so good. So I think, but at the end, if you don't have so much light, you can see here, you can see a little bit of blurriness, even though I took a lot of pictures. But the pro tip is that take as many as you can, because it's really stretch space, and also Photoshop helps a lot. It was a great, I think it was a great work.
I'm just
Thank
going to
you.
mention that in a case like that interior of the helicopter, this is a situation where if you're using a DSLR, you really have to have that non-parallax position
Non-parallax.
dialed in,
Yes,
because otherwise the stitching is an absolute
No.
nightmare. And
impossible.
I emphasized this on one of the previous webinars. I have had to contract with panoramic photographers around the world for a client, and I am shocked by how many do not have their cameras set up correctly. And then I had the joy of trying to stitch all of those in very difficult situations. If you want to have a good workflow and you do anything like this, check out the videos on YouTube. Make sure that you have your camera set up right. It will make a huge difference.
Yeah, totally. My C1 has, I have the like the millimetric, I don't know how to say, but in the Nano Ninja R1, you can adjust where to always fit your camera. So I have it like in 2.7, although I use a Sony Alpha 6400 with a converter from Canon to Sony, because I still use my Canon Sigma onto Sony, but it works good.
Should we cover any more questions that we have?
I'm sure
Somebody
we,
was, okay. Questions up, again, on that 3D model, Stephanie, you'll have to
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably explain more
I'm
about that.
messaging. Yeah, so that tour, that specific tour has more than 40 3D models. It has a lot of models. And so I don't know, somebody was mentioning that it's like stuttering, but yeah, optimizing the models is really important, but
Yeah, we
I'm
should
very
look at that, because I know that that's what has always been one of the bigger draws of the Matterport, and
yeah,
rightly so,
yeah.
that dollhouse is that ability to because most of the time, unless you're doing a single floor,
We
that
have
you get
another,
multiple levels.
we have another I can share really quick too, since there's an
Yeah,
interest
show us some more.
in the 3D model. So this is actually um another project within the same series, and this is 2 individual models that we did and stamped them onto, a flat surface. But this is how this tour starts, is that you're in this space and can look at the models before you enter. And so somebody was mentioning that and then we have a library of models for all the models within the tours. And
Cool. And they were all LiDAR scanned, So they're
Yeah, some like, I mean, the buildings were done with drone photogrammetry, but, you know, a lot of these were LiDAR scanned. The other thing that I'm trying to think, like all my models are in 3DVista. Like we're not hosting them somewhere else. I'm importing them into 3DVista and that's being used right there. And the functionality works really great for us. Yeah.
just on that same subject of the models, and whether it's studying or not, when you're starting to get into the Gaussian splatting, you're going to find out, don't get too ahead of yourself before you actually produce splats, publish them to a server, and then try to run them on your phone. There is a definite wall, the same as there is with models or anything else, because you are loading a single, it might as well be a model, you're loading a single file. And I'm finding 3-4 million splats, something maybe in the 60-70 meg range is tolerable. I go above that and the user experience is now there might be some clever things we can do with these where we can load up the point cloud to start with. I noticed that Daniel had done that. That's a clever trick where you can, you know, it doesn't boom, the model doesn't pop there. Maybe have the points coming. That'll be fun, but I like
There's
3D
another
models.
question, really quick for Alan. This is a really good question. So 3D models in VR, and with 3D Vista, VR capability is definitely there. But I think that that's a really, really good question because when we're transitioning, you're in a 360 space, you want to use a 3D model, you're transitioning out of that 360 space and putting the user in a viewer for the 3D model, right? Because there's no skin element in VR. So this is really interesting, and we've had to like really become innovative with how the user experience goes through that. If you want to deliver a 3D model, you use the order of your project files to tell the story. So you're going to have, yeah. So your next item in the list of project files becomes the 3D model, and it has to be in the line of where you want it to be so that the user then has the opportunity to click a hotspot on that 3D model that takes them to the next media, which is the action that you're going to use for that. And the next media would be then the panorama so that they re-enter the space that they were in, if that makes sense. So yes, we are using the 3D models in VR.
And there is even another, with this Gaussian splatting, you can, I don't know if 3DVista now has it, but you can use pass-through, colors pass-through in Quest 3 at least. You can see your 3D models in your own like mixed reality environment. So that would be really cool future for 3DVista.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question on, hopefully you guys know the app, 3DVista app. Do any of you want to talk about it? That?
I just started using it. I didn't know that was a thing. I think sometimes when you're working and building, when this was another thing that got brought up, 3D Vista is a one-time purchase and you have the software, but they do updates. And it is valid that the updates generally, that subscription to purchase the new update is almost always completely worth it. Like we have made our money back tenfold on all those things. So their updates are very good. But sometimes it's hard to keep up with all the new innovation while trying to do what they deliver and do it well, you know? So yeah, just started using the app.
What is the app? Can you, if you're not familiar with it? Like me?
Do you use it, Daniel? No. Okay, so I just saw, so what's really cool is that before you could run a preview on your desktop and preview your tour, but there was no way to preview in mobile unless you're running, I'm going to mess up what that's called, but like you can go into developer mode and switch the orientation of your screen and make it look like a mobile screen, right? And so that's what we were doing. But this app, when opened on mobile, you can scan a QR for the preview and preview it on your mobile, just automatically, and you can do VR headsets. And so you can put in a code in your VR headset just by going to the app on browser. So it's confusing that they call it an app. It's app.3dvista.com. It's a browser-based app. And then you put in that code and you can preview your tour in VR without publishing, which is just glorious. That saves so much time.
Sorry, Daniel. We didn't cover this, and I skipped over it, but we're talking about just building the virtual tours. And if you go back and look at our past webinars, we've done the hosting or displaying of the virtual tours is an entirely different webinar about where you choose it and stuff. So one of the nice features of 3D Vista and also Pano 2 VR, and I had in my comment, I said this is a one-time subscription. Again, that's for the builder. But if you build a virtual tour, what do you do with it if you don't have your server? Being able to publish, your server within that ecosystem, not having to go is if you're just starting out, that is going to be a huge advantage for you. If you have your own server and you're familiar with posting things, great. It's not. But if you don't, yeah, this app or these abilities to display your work on a server is critical. Because you don't know if it works until you've looked at
I'm
it on
understanding
phone.
you can use the app without paying 3D Vista hosting. I host on my separate.
Oh,
It's just,
cool.
it's a
Yeah.
preview, and then you can view it offline too.
Because it's locally.
Yeah.
What I used before they launched this, I had like a internal server that published my IP, so I could enter and test with my iPhone and my VR headsets. But now they are integrated this, so what I think they do is they publish the IP to like a web server, so you can access through your phone or headset.
Yeah, it's cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Someone asked about live guiding. I'm assuming it's a live guided tour.
Yeah. Were you? I've never tested, but have you tested?
Yep, I've got one
Tell
that's
us.
probably
Tell us.
started.
That's a use case that I've had clients come to me before.
Yeah.
And they've actually made it's museums and things where they want to take the virtual tour. They set up a Zoom call, and then I'll have a curator will lead, people have signed
Yes.
up for it, and they'll lead them through my virtual tour, which has got me into, being able to automate your tour or to have these types of guided. Because one of the problems with virtual tours is it's the gaming issue of open world versus what's the best is what they call head on rails. Like if you restrict a person too much, they don't like the game. If you leave them too open, they get lost and they don't like the game. And it's called head on rails, where you allow them to work their way through the tour. And this is perfect for, for storytelling for virtual reality is how do you move them through it? But
Yeah. Yeah. So the live guided is something that we use a lot, especially with museums. I highly suggest when you have a curator involved, but it allows them to be able to enter the tour. And I mean, I think that it has huge applications for a lot of different purposes. But yeah, we've used it.
see, yeah, that Colin's mentioning the thing about the hosting programs. Very nice when you're first starting out, but you will find them to be expensive. If you become successful and you're starting to produce virtual tours, you're going to find that you're going to have to get a server, and you're going to have to learn how to do that, or else it will blow your budget.
Security settings on live guided tours is a mess. So sometimes, yes, within an office and network, for sure, the government. They don't like having the live guided tour functionality. It just, yeah, that. So what I do in those cases is I have the user, I have the client purchases and self-hosts the tour. So they're buying the tour from me, they put it on their own servers, and live guided tour will work for them if they're hosting on their own server.
I
Yeah.
think we've all actually covered. Oh, here's another one. Yeah, just comments again about you'll find that the hosting of your servers is a whole big challenge.
Where do you host, Stephanie? Do you use AWS?
AWS.
Yeah. Chocolate.
Like the world.
I use InMotion hosting just because I've been with them forever. They're a little more expensive, but they've never gone down in the 15 years that I've used them.
Yeah.
I pay like $2 per month.
Yeah, well,
I'm a little bit more expensive.
I'm a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's cool. Well, yeah. And so, I mean, obviously this is just like a really easy dip into 3D Vista. It's a really interesting. I think it's really cool because it's like Lauren was showing in his diagram at the beginning. It's a really cool software, very easy to get into. The customizations are all there though, so that if you want to deep dive, and we were even talking about there's a marketplace. I think Lawrence mentioned that, where you can purchase items such as skins. You can also purchase a JavaScript library.
Yeah, I have it.
So if you want to deep dive and customize your tours, you can do all that.
And if you're a programmer, and you're competent, you might find a business opportunity here. You could see that if you had produced that 3D model that was in Stephanie's virtual tour, and that was a product that other people could purchase and integrate into their virtual tours, you can see you had probably a few sales today on that one. So that's kind of cool. I was going to give one last tip, just kind of backing up what Scott said about the importance of dialing in your equipment. And it's one of my tips is once I have the panoramic head and I'm using a 360 precision, an old one, good stuff. But once I have it set up, I'll listen to a movie, I'll rent a book or something, and I'll plan on spending the entire day, and I'll just move it the slightest amount, right? A fraction of a millimeter in a direction, and take a panorama inside my kitchen, run it through the entire process in the PT GUI to look at the stitch number, like the initial error number. Take the camera again, move it another tiny fraction of an inch, and just go back and forth on the two settings, and you'll eventually it'll take hours, but you'll eventually get to where that PT GUI number is low. And for my case, I'm stitching around 22K resolution images, and my initial error is around 5 or 6, and I'm quickly able to get down to about 2 to 3, which means I don't really have a whole lot of stitching errors anywhere but just to fix the nadir or the zenith.
In my case, it's way faster. You can just move the lens is
No,
held.
I do that.
Yeah.
I do that, the 2 points. But then
Yeah.
once you've got that, you have to run it through and produce the panorama and see the stitch number in PT GUI, and then take and adjust it the tiniest of fractions. You're trying to get, it's tedious, but
Okay.
once it's in,
Yeah.
I haven't touched that. Once I dialed it in, I haven't touched that panoramic head for 10 years. And
Right.
it is just
Mhm.
dialed in hard as can be for that body and lens. And they used to make, back in the day, 360 Precision would make, when there wasn't a whole lot of options, they would make a panoramic head for a body and lens. And that was the best. I haven't seen an anti-gravity drone. We do need to do drones. I think we should buy a drone for the club, and then I can take it out because I don't have one, and then I could
The
do a drone.
anti-gravity drone. I love
Yeah, we
that
need to get
post.
an anti-gravity
Oh,
drone.
it's cool. You guys have to look at the
Amazing.
anti-gravity drone.
Yeah.
It's about to release. It's a 360 video drone.
Video.
So no
Oh.
more building funky rigs.
How
And
much?
you fly it with goggles.
1,500.
How much?
1,500, I think.
Isn't that
1,500.
bad? I'm not a drone operator, so I'll hire someone if someone buys it and is certified. I need a drone operator.
I will sell $1,500 worth of toys.
They have made DIY this type of drones because what you need is a lens in the upper and the lower. The little problem is like the center, it might cut off if you are too near, but as you are using aerial shooting, you are going to be really far. So I think it's good thing to
And
keep.
some of the Gaussian splatting that I've been seeing, from a GIS, geographic information, is really impressive. It takes the Google Google Earth view or whatever, blows it away.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we're kind of we're at the end here. So thank you, everybody.